Mazda BT-50 in 2015, which was 1 year after the car was released in 2014. So this is my experience driving the car for the last 10 years, and I'll attempt to show some examples of where I've been with the car, and you could judge for yourself. But for 10 years, quite some interesting lessons, or some interesting things I've noticed around the car. I'll probably buy it again if I have the chance. So the looks of the car in itself, I quite like that compared to Toyota, and it's kept really well despite driving it for quite a long distance in Kenya, where the roads are not perfect. I actually use it for bird watching, and I've been everywhere in the country. I've never changed the coolant. I've never even opened the coolant. Maybe it's about time I did that now, which refers to an excellent cooling system. I added the lower fog lights because this is the best version, 2.2 liter turbo. That bit there is loose, it keeps on coming off, but it's never really fallen off. No significant repairs per se. When you walk around the car, I got that cover, the top cover. I don't like it. It's something that I'll talk about shortly. The other thing you realize is I lost the cover for the fuel cap. I don't know where that fell off. And then I added an extra leaf, the number 2 in the leaves. Raised it a little higher, makes it a lot more solid. No significant damages. So the one thing that I do is to compare a similar Toyota double cab. Where I worked before, I had the chance of comparing this Mazda BT-50 with a 2014 and a 2019 Toyota double cab. What I really like about the BT-50 is the service interval, which is anywhere between 8,000 and 12,000 versus 5,000 service interval for the Toyotas. The team that I had used to mess up the clutches in the Toyotas pretty quick. So every 40 to 70,000 kilometers, I had to approve the replacement of the clutch. The other thing that I really like about the BT-50 is I'm heading to 300,000 kilometers, but the gear is as smooth as butter. Smoother. Then the BT-50 as well is a unique car in Kenya. Loads of robberies involving Toyotas. Sometimes, they steal the whole car and you never see it. The fuel economy is quite good, 13 kilometers per liter, off-road and on-road. And as I mentioned, the cooling system is great. I've managed to break the leaf springs twice. I don't understand how, but I've broken the leaf springs twice. And for some reason, from the rear ventilation behind the rear seat, there's leakage of rainwater, which means the inside of the car gets a little damp when it rains. And then the switch, could be the relay for the 4-wheel drive, which is just under the vehicle. At around 150,000, it started throwing some errors, and I'm seeing it's throwing errors again. So I think the lifespan of that is 150,000 kilometers. I've also changed the drive shaft, right-hand side, and the driver's seat is not as firm as I would have liked for now. So I said I'm just under 300,000 kilometers, no significant issues with the car. The fuel gauge is pretty accurate. If it says 1 kilometer to go before empty, that's exactly what it is. Everything else in the car is basic, nothing fancy on the inside. That's how the car is looking after 10 years, and that's the wetness, which comes from the rear ventilation, which I mentioned. So that's how the car looks. That's the view normally. Quite a high stance and quite a reliable vehicle. So I said I go bird watching on this car. I've been to literally every corner of Kenya. Kenya is probably bigger than Luxembourg, Germany, Netherlands put together. Maybe just about the size of France. Very few issues. Once when I thought I had an issue, it turned up to be the ring in the oil filter, which wasn't fitted properly during service. It gave me quite some grief trying to figure out what that was all about. But I've been to many parts of Kenya, as I've said. I normally park by the road or anywhere really. That's me carrying binoculars and probably a camera looking for birds. And the other thing I quite like is you're able to charge your phones and everything without turning the car on. So the cigarette lighters, there's still enough current, enough to run a couple of devices. Servicing it is pretty straightforward. If I need an oil change or whatever it is, that happens pretty quick. That's somewhere in the bushes in Kakamega. And the car is usually never that far from me. So it's my second home. So I said just under the car there is the relay for the 4-wheel switch, which seems to throw an error once in a while. I think I was just trying to check whether it was loose. Otherwise, car drives really well. Of the close to 300,000 kilometers, I think easily 200,000 have been on very bad road. So the squeak you can hear there, that's the bushes coming from the rear of the car, where the leaf springs sit. It's an annoying squeak that sometimes even with new bushes it's hard to fix. That's in West Pokot. I've never really checked the turning radius and all that, but I find it very easy to turn. I also prefer to use the tarmac tires. I've got stuck a few times. I'll show you some examples. But I find the off-road tires very noisy. The car is quite quiet normally. I like it that way. And most obstacles, if it is dry, are a non-issue. The only time I get to freak out is when it's muddy. So I had some of the most beautiful views of nature from the car, and some really, really rare birds. That's a Foxy cisticola, super rare, somewhere in West Pokot.
Yeah, that was too short, yeah.
Yellow bill shrike. Also very, very rare for Kenya.
It just looks like the paler one. No, the migrant one is much better. Oh, the migrant.
So there's this once we were in Pokot and kind of just bird watching. Then we decided, it was late in the evening, we decided to go up that river which you see flowing, and that's me driving up the dryish riverbed. And we got a decent place where we could camp together with my friends for the night. So this is pretty normal in the BT-50. Set up tent. I carry most of the camping gear at the back. As I've said, I really dislike that setup. I'll probably want something where I sleep on the car or in the car. It's quite cumbersome doing this all the time. But I've done it for 10 years, so maybe I shouldn't complain too much. So we set up camp, and then
heavy rain upriver.
My brother says heavy rain upriver, and we start seeing the rainfall, the water coming downstream. Now that part of the world is pretty dangerous with flash floods. And remember, this is where I drove up. And suddenly my road down is a raging river. Many people have been swept in some kind of flash flood. So anyway, we continue enjoying ourselves. We cook dinner. Sleep, and the next morning, as we're waiting for the river to recede, we continue watching birds. Some really beautiful ones. That's one of my favorite birds in Kenya, white-crested turtle. More yellow-billed shrikes. There's a gonolexum in the background. Then we start parking the car in readiness to leave. And once everything is parked, I get back into the river and promptly get stuck. Now this was one scary thing because
this car, yeah?
upriver we could still see loads of
tunaweza iwekea mawe kwa wheels.
Weka trot kabisa, ongeza nini kabisa.
Niinue huku nyuma.
Unaona?
Okay. Inachimba. Unaona? What happened to the tire?
Should we try pushing it forward? Let's just push him.
Yeah.
Victor, we're going to push you forward. Chop, chop, let's go. Okay.
It feels a little far. Yeah. Looking like it's going to rain. Raining cats and dogs in Busia.
So are guys in Ethiopia so friendly? They like Kenya.
They like Kenya. What's that, sir? Imagine here when it has rained. Guess what that is? Kibika. Red and yellow barbecue.
Although we want to teach you direct.
Sorry?
Look.